And I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no comforter, but power was on the side of their oppressors. Ecclesiastes 4. And have you ever carried a pain that didn't start with you? Have you ever looked at your life and thought, why does it feel like I'm paying a debt I never owed? This is not coincidence. Heaven has opened a scroll with your name on it. Not a scroll of shame, but a record, a spiritual case file. And the first line reads, the pain they carry is not punishment. It is prophecy in motion. You were not sent here to fit in. You were sent here as a divine interruption. Because before you were even born, the bloodline you carry was infected. Not by DNA, but by patterns. Patterns of silence, patterns of sorrow, patterns that no one dared to challenge. Until you. You were not the first to suffer, but you are the first to be awakened. And when God awakens a chosen one, hell reacts violently. Because your awakening breaks spiritual contracts made in silence, in the shadows, before you ever had a voice. Look around. Have you seen the repetition of abuse, of abandonment, of soul-deep sadness that visits your home like a curse with no name? That's not just trauma. That's a generational courtroom still waiting for justice. And justice has now been scheduled. Not in human time, but in divine appointment. There are cries in your bloodline that never got answered. There are sighs from your grandmother's chest that no one ever heard. There are scars on your father's heart he never had language for. But heaven heard, and heaven watched. And when no one on earth could bring comfort, God marked someone to break the silence. That someone is you. You may think you're fragile. You may think you're too emotional. You may wonder why the world feels heavier for you than it does for others. But let me speak prophetically to your identity. You are not fragile. You are a divine witness. You have been summoned to a generational trial, not as a victim, but as a verdict, because the story was never meant to end with brokenness, and you are heaven's evidence that pain does not get the final word. There is a war for your sensitivity, a battle for your boundaries, because darkness knew, if this one ever wakes up, everything changes. So let me be clear. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are not overreacting. You are chosen. And the weight you feel, that's not weakness. That's the echo of generations waiting on your courage. Your tears are not wasted. They are testimony. They are sacred ink rewriting the history of your lineage. Right now, angels are flipping pages. Unclean verdicts are being overturned. Wounds once hidden are being summoned into the light. And your voice, the very one that was once silenced, is becoming a weapon. Hell is nervous because you dared to feel. You dared to stop the cycle. You dared to confront what others called normal. You are the interruption. You are the divine rebellion. You are heaven's no more. And from this moment forward, your pain is no longer just pain. It is prophetic. It is proof that God still invades bloodlines with mercy. But when God, who set me apart from my mother's womb and called me by his grace, was pleased, before you ever had a last name, before your ancestors made their vows or mistakes, before pain echoed through your family tree, you were already seen. You were already known. You were already set apart. Chosen ones are not born by accident. They are sent by design. You were not placed in that family to be broken. You were planted to bring the healing. You may have thought your environment created you, but I say this with spiritual authority. Your environment was the assignment, not the author. God looked into a timeline polluted with pain and declared, "This is where I will send a breaker." Like Joseph, you were misunderstood from birth. The dreamer, the one who felt too much, the one your own brothers couldn't fully accept. Like David, you were overlooked, left tending sheep while others were paraded as more qualified. Like Esther, you were positioned in enemy territory, but with royal blood and kingdom timing. You have felt alone, not because you are unwanted, but because you are anointed in a way they can't explain. Your birth may have looked natural, but it was a supernatural strategy, a heavenly counterattack. When you were born, the spirit realm trembled because God didn't just give you breath. He gave you an assignment that starts in the unseen, an assignment that would make you feel different because you are. Let me be clear. You weren't chosen to continue what's been tolerated. You were chosen to confront it, not with hatred, not with rebellion, but with holy discernment. You are not the family shame. You are its healing. You are not the black sheep. You are the prophetic sheep sent to shift the pasture. You are not the emotional one. You are the spiritually tuned instrument that heaven plays through. And yes, you felt the tension, the disconnect, the ache to belong somewhere deeper, because chosen ones always carry the homesickness of heaven. You walk through life feeling both ancient and new, because your soul remembers battles that your body didn't fight, but your spirit was present for. You were chosen in the beginning, but activated in the now. And like Moses, your awakening started when the system tried to silence you, tried to raise you in Pharaoh's palace, thinking you'd forget your call. But you didn't forget. You couldn't. Because the call of the chosen is not stored in the mind. It's branded in the bones. And when the time came, you didn't need permission. You didn't need applause. You just needed confirmation. And heaven has already given it. That stirring in your soul, that ache to break what others accepted, that's not rebellion. That's remembrance. You are remembering who you were before the pain. You are remembering who you were before the rejection. You are remembering that you were sent to shift atmospheres, not adapt to them. This is your genesis, not in the flesh, but in the spirit. And like the prophets before you, you've been marked not just to feel, but to free. You are the bridge between what was broken and what will be whole. And your very existence is proof that God has not abandoned your family line. You are not the echo. You are the voice. You are not the wound. You are the healing. You are not what they called you. You are what God named you before the world began. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. Before you ever opened your eyes, before you spoke your first word, hell had already whispered your name, not because you were cursed, but because you were dangerous. The enemy saw something in your soul that terrified him, so he convened a council, a spiritual conspiracy. In the first order of demonic business, do not let them know who they are. So from an early age, you were surrounded by confusion, shame that wasn't yours, rejection that made no sense, tension in rooms that should have felt safe, because the council of darkness doesn't attack randomly. It targets those marked to disrupt cycles. This was never just about you. This was about what you carry, the light, the vision, the interruption. The devil doesn't fight what's passive. He fights what has the power to change realms. And so the attacks began. In your childhood, where your innocence was tested, in your family, where division was sown, in your mind, and where lies were planted like weeds in a field of potential. And each lie had a purpose. You're too much. No one understands you. You'll never break free. This is just how it is. Those were not your thoughts. Those were injections of spiritual fear. Because if you ever found out who you really were, the chains would start breaking, the room would start shifting, the altar of generational pain would collapse, and so hell whispered lies, hoping you believe them. But what the counsel of darkness forgot is this: you were not just marked, you were watched over. even when you didn't know it, even when you fell, even when you agreed with the lies. Heaven didn't revoke your calling, it preserved it. You weren't discarded, you were hidden. Hidden from the people who would misuse you, hidden from systems that would exploit your gift, hidden in pain, but only for preparation. Because while hell planned your silence, God planned your unveiling. There is a moment when the chosen one remembers, and when that moment comes, no darkness can unmark them. Like Jesus in the wilderness, you were tested, not to destroy you, but to prove you. And every time you thought you were being buried, you were actually being planted. Every attempt to crush you only fertilized the soil for your emergence. Let me say it clearly. The depression didn't win. The trauma didn't erase your name. The abandonment did not remove your assignment. They all tried to stop you, but they failed. Because what hell called weakness, God calls weaponry. Your sensitivity, a radar for truth. Your tears, a language heaven understands. Your story, a key that unlocks others' chains. And now, the counsel of darkness is in disarray. Because you didn't just survive. You remembered. You remembered the dream. You remembered the promise. You remembered the feeling you were born for more. The enemy sees it now. The fire in your eyes, the steadiness in your spirit, the calm strength of someone who knows they're covered. You are the storm that hell tried to avoid, and the moment you speak, the atmosphere changes, because you don't just carry words, you carry verdicts. You are the mouthpiece of breakthrough, and the very rooms they tried to lock you out of, you are now entering with divine authority. The Lord is a God who avenges. O God who avenges, shine forth. Psalm 94. 1. There is a law more ancient than the earth itself, a divine mechanism built into the very fabric of creation, the law of return. What was sown will return. What was spoken will echo. What was hidden will be revealed. The world calls it karma. The faithful know it as justice, and heaven calls it the law of the Lord. You have cried tears in silence, sowed mercy when others handed you malice. You forgave when no apology came. You kept walking when slander tried to anchor you. And now, the law of return is in motion. Because the God who sees in secret is also the God who rewards in suddenness. There are moments when the scales tip, and this is one of them. That betrayal, watch how God turns it into a blessing. That delay, it's about to explode into destiny. That silence, it's about to roar with a holy reply. Heaven has declared a return on every righteous seed you thought was forgotten, and not just in your life, but in your bloodline. The lies spoken over your parents, the injustice buried in your grandparents' prayers, the shame no one dared name. God says, I saw it all, and now I return with fire. This is the hour where the mirror turns, where the arrows return to sender, where the curses boomerang, where the fields that lay dormant begin to shake with harvest. And not just any harvest, but multiplied harvest. For every moment you were mocked, honor. For every season you walked alone, divine alliance. For every door slammed in your face, gates flung open by God himself. Because justice is not vengeance. Justice is order restored. You are not being elevated to gloat. You are being raised to rebuild. This is not a comeback. This is a divine correction. The law of return does not just reward you. It rebukes everything that dared to violate your assignment. The enemy thought you'd stay down, but you were never buried, only planted. And now the harvest has begun to break the soil. What you cried for in secret will be vindicated in public. What tried to crush you will now cringe at your rising. Because this isn't about personal success, it's about spiritual inheritance. God is returning everything that was withheld from your lineage, peace that was stolen, joy that was repressed, identity that was erased, inheritance that was blocked. O God who avenges, shine forth. That's not a threat, that's a promise. You don't have to fight dirty when you know heaven fights holy. And when God fights for you, no lie can stand, no chain can remain, no injustice can last. Your reward is not coming, it has already been released. And what's returning to you now is bigger than anything you lost. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and the books were open. Daniel 7:10. There is a place in the spirit where no lie survives, where every hidden pain is presented as evidence, where angels take the witness stand, and the judge is not blind, he is holy. That place is the heavenly courtroom, and the moment you were born, your name was entered into its scrolls. Not as a defendant, not as a failure, but as the restoration clause in your family's story. You've wept on earth, but heaven was listening. You were dismissed by men, but heaven summoned a case in your name. And now, the gavel is in God's hand. The prosecutor, the accuser of the brethren, has spoken. He has replayed your failures. He has recited the sins of your lineage. He has screamed about your weakness, trying to invalidate your calling. But then, the judge lifts his hand, and silence falls in heaven. Not because your record is clean, but because your Redeemer has spoken. That record was nailed to the cross. That iniquity was covered by the blood. That pain was turned into purpose. This one is mine. The courtroom erupts, not in chaos, but in verdict. Case ruled in favor of the chosen. Scrolls of destiny are reopened. Ancient covenants that were delayed are released. Generational blessings that were locked in the archives of heaven begin to fall like rain. Because this wasn't just your trial, this was your turning point, where accusations became affirmations, where curses were reversed, where your name was cleared and your assignment was reinstated with fire. You stood before God not because you were perfect, but because you didn't quit, because you refused to let pain be your identity, because you showed up with trembling hands but a surrendered heart. And heaven honors surrender more than strength. You are not on trial anymore. You are being commissioned. Commissioned to walk in freedom. Commissioned to restore your bloodline. Commissioned to be a living decree that God still rules, even over what the world ignores. Let every lie be silenced. Let every chain be broken. Let every enemy that mocked your obedience now see, this one carries a legal verdict from heaven. And with that verdict, you now speak differently. You walk differently. You war differently. Because you are not fighting for victory, you are walking from victory. You are heaven's proof that restoration is not just a promise. It's a process that ends in justice. So go ahead. Speak with the weight of someone who has been cleared. Pray with the boldness of someone who has seen the scrolls. Declare with the confidence of someone who stood in the fire and was not consumed. Because your case has been decided. And the judge, he ruled in your favor. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. Isaiah 61:7. There comes a time when the heavens say, enough. Enough delay, enough humiliation, enough suffering in silence. Now begins the restoration. You endured in secret. You were misunderstood in public. You were faithful when no one clapped. And now, God is preparing a double portion, not just healing, honor, not just survival, inheritance, not just restoration, recompense. Because the Lord who watched you sow in tears is now commanding you to reap in joy. And this harvest will not be hidden. You are about to be publicly honored for what you suffered privately. This is the justice of God. Where you were once covered in shame, now comes a double anointing. Where disgrace tried to define you, now comes a joy no one can steal. The very spaces that rejected you will watch you return, robed in redemption. You won't have to demand respect, you'll walk in it, and the fragrance of your obedience will fill every room you enter. This is not karma. This is not luck. This is divine restoration. Because God keeps records, and He also throws banquets. He is throwing a celebration in your name, not because you were perfect, but because you were faithful. You resisted bitterness. You chose love when hate would have been easier. You kept showing up with a wounded heart and a willing spirit, and now heaven's honor is about to cover you like a mantle. The same people who look down on you will now look up to you, not in pride, but in recognition, because they'll see what God sees: a survivor turned servant, a wounded one turned healer, a silenced one now speaking with authority. This is your inheritance, joy that cannot be shaken. Because when God restores, He doesn't restore you back to where you were. He launches you beyond what you could have imagined. A double portion for your shame, a territory where you once had none, and a rejoicing that silences the disgrace of generations. You're not just being restored, you're being enthroned. Not as royalty above others, but as a living testimony of what happens when someone refuses to break under the weight of pain. This is not a reward for endurance alone. It's heaven's public declaration. This one chose love. This one chose truth. This one is mine. And now your joy begins. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. Everything you've endured, the betrayal, the silence, the loneliness, the nights where the tears wouldn't stop. It wasn't just suffering, it was strategy. You were not just surviving a storm, you were being trained in the fire for a mission that only the fire could reveal. Because the greatest callings are never born in comfort. They are birthed in wilderness. Moses had to flee Egypt before he could free it. Joseph had to be thrown in a pit before he sat in the palace. David had to hide in caves before he wore the crown. And you had to walk through your own valley. To learn that pain does not cancel purpose, it awakens it. The enemy tried to use your past to disqualify you, but God just used it to anoint you. What broke others built you. What confused others commissioned you. Your scars are not shame, they're scrolls. Your tears are not weakness, they're weapons of wisdom. And now heaven is unlocking the next level of your calling. Because the greater mission is never about recognition, it's about restoration. You're not called to impress, you are called to impact. And the impact begins here. Where you were hurt, you will now heal. Where you were silenced, you will now speak. Where you were rejected, you will now receive others with compassion. This is the turning point, where your pain becomes authority, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that shifts atmospheres simply by being present. Because people can feel when someone has walked through fire and didn't lose their faith. You now carry what the world cannot buy, credibility through crushing. You have become an open gate for others to walk through. Your why me has become use me. Your when will this end has become what would you have me do. You're no longer asking God to remove the fire. You're asking Him to use it as fuel, because now you understand your story isn't just a story, it's a strategy of deliverance for others bound by the same chains you broke. The greater mission is not just to be healed, it is to become the healing. You are now the one who sees the pain others hide. You are now the one who offers what no one offered you. You are now the one who carries keys to prisons you never built, but learned how to escape. You are the Moses, the Joseph, the Deborah, the Esther of your generation. And God is sending you back into the very places that wounded you, but this time with authority. So speak boldly, love fiercely, walk faithfully, because your scars are not secrets, they're sermons, and your mission is just beginning. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Let me look you in the eye, spirit to spirit, and tell you something you may have never heard. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are exactly the kind of soul God chooses to call, not because of your strength, but because of your willingness to keep feeling, even when it hurts. I know you've asked God, why do I feel things so deeply? Why do I care when others go numb? Why do I cry over things no one else seems to notice? Let me answer you, because you are carrying something eternal, because your compassion is not weakness, it is anointing, because you were chosen to see what others ignore and to break what others pass down. I've walked where you're walking. I've laid in bed with a weight on my chest that had no name. I've looked at my family and thought, something has to change, and I think it starts with me. And yes, I felt crazy. I felt alone. I felt like no one understood this invisible war happening inside of me. But here's the truth. That war inside you is the sound of heaven breaking a cycle through you. You are not emotionally unstable. You are spiritually awake. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. And if no one has told you this yet, let me say it now. You are not the curse. You are the cure. You were sent into your family line, not to conform, but to confront the silence with love. To say, this addiction stops here. This trauma will not be recycled. This grief will not become our legacy. This pain will not own our name. Maybe you're the first to say, I need help. Maybe you're the first to say, I forgive. Maybe you're the first to say, no more pretending. That's not weakness, that's spiritual revolution. You are the new chapter your family has been crying out for, even if they don't realize it. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's exhausting. But hear me clearly. Every time you choose healing over hiding, every time you choose honesty over image, every time you choose faith over fear, you are shaking the foundations of hell. You are not here by accident. You did not click this video by chance. This is your divine interruption. And I feel the Spirit of God saying, Beloved, the fire you're walking through is not for your destruction. It's for your distinction. God is setting you apart, not to isolate you, but to identify you. You are the Moses rising out of the river. You are the David stepping out of obscurity. You are the Esther waking up in the palace. You are the Joseph dusting off betrayal and walking into purpose. And if you still have breath, it means the mission is still in motion. So come forward, not in shame, but in surrender. Say it with me right now. I choose healing. I choose truth. I choose to become the link that transforms. Because your yes, even whispered, echoes in eternity. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. This is not just the end of a video. This is the moment the courtroom of heaven pauses, waiting on your response, not the response of your family, not the approval of your friends, not the permission of your past, yours. Because heaven does not activate assignments on sentiment, it activates them on surrender. Right now, the Spirit of God is hovering over your house, over your history, over your heart. And he's asking one question. Will you say yes? Yes to the call. Yes to the breaking of cycles. Yes to the releasing of bitterness. Yes to the healing of your bloodline, even if you're the only one willing to do it. Hell hopes you walk away from this moment numb, distracted, too tired to act, because hell knows what happens when a chosen one fully surrenders. The spiritual parasites break, the old patterns collapse, the silence ends, and the name of Jesus becomes a banner over your bloodline. This is not a motivational speech. This is a summons to stand in the authority you've been given, to renounce the lies whispered over you in childhood, to silence the shame passed down like an inheritance, to reject the spirit of fear that says, "You're not ready." Because let me speak this with fire and truth. You are ready, because you were anointed before you were attacked. You were chosen in the secret place, and every attack you faced was confirmation of your spiritual threat level. That anxiety you've battled, it wasn't a curse. It was your soul sounding the alarm that your calling was under assault. That heaviness that visits you at night, it's because darkness knew you were about to rise. So here it is in the final decree. If you choose today to lay down vengeance, to stop waiting for validation, to stop running from the ache of your assignment, heaven will back you. Angels will surround you. Oil will begin to flow. Divine connections will be released, and the ground beneath your feet will shift because you finally stepped into who you were born to be. This isn't about becoming someone else. This is about becoming who you already are. A breaker, a reformer, a bloodline transformer, a living verdict. So take a deep breath and repeat after me, not with fear, but with fire. I renounce the fear that held my family captive. I reject the silence that cost my ancestors their healing. I choose obedience. I choose surrender. I receive my authority as a chosen one. I will walk in my calling. I will not go back. I will not bow to the old system. I am the one God chose, and I accept the mission. Now pause. Let the spirit fall. Let your body weep if it must. Let the chains clatter to the floor. Because what just happened wasn't emotional. It was eternal. You've been marked. You've been set apart. You've been sealed with oil that the world can't wash off. Welcome to the mission. Welcome to the movement. Welcome to the new beginning your ancestors prayed for, but never saw. You are the one, the link, the light, the living proof that love wins.